Hey, chiropractors, welcome to Modern Chiropractic Mastery with your host, Dr. Kevin Christie, where we discuss the latest in marketing, business, and professional growth with some of the leading experts in the industry. Welcome to another episode of Modern Chiropractic Mastery. This is your host, Dr. Kevin Christie, and today I'm bringing an interview with Dr. Stephen Reinlie from Austin, Texas. He's been in our MCM coaching program for a bit now, and we really lay out his career path and then making the decision to go from working for a practice for quite some time to opening up his own practice a little over a year or so ago, and how that journey has been for him and some of the lessons and the good things, the hard things, and all the stuff that goes into opening up a practice. And we kind of dive into that, which was great to sometimes, spotlight some people that are making that dive into, let's call it chiropractic entrepreneurship and what it's like and how they are navigating being able to do that. So before we do, I just want to make mention, we are going to be, if you're in Europe or you want to go to Europe, I'm going to be with Dr. Chris Chippendale in the UK, June 20th of 2026. And we're going to talk about the patient experience. It'll be a one-day masterclass. He'll do half of it. I'll do the other half. You will leave that day really understanding how to apply a great, remarkable patient experience to your clinic. You will leave with a new patient experience. It won't just be theory and didactic lecture. You will work through improving what your patients are experiencing. And it's not just clinical. There's a lot of things that go to it. So we'd love to have you there. We have early bird until March 31st. You can go to bit.ly/MCMUK26. It'll be on June 20th in London. So check that out. We'd love to see you there. I know we got quite a bit of listeners here that are from Europe, and we'd love to see you there and connect with you even further. So without further ado, here is my interview with Dr. Stephen Reinlie. All right. Excited to have Stephen on the show here today to really talk about kind of a origin story of graduating from school, going into a career path and where we're at now. Before we dive into some of that, tell us about yourself.
Yeah, thank you for having me on. Always a pleasure to do something like this. My story is probably not all that different from a lot of people's stories that decide to go into the chiropractic field. I graduated December of 2021 from Parker, and I was our class valedictorian. I don't say that to boast. I say that to put out there that there was nobody knocking on my door to hire me. Yeah. So I always like to remind people that it's about who you know, how you present yourself. That's so important in this type of work. I mean, the clinical skills are obvious. I think we all aspire to be good at it, but just getting good grades on your test questions doesn't mean much. So I got out just like many of us do. You're looking for finding a way to pay back your student loans and pay for your life. Joined a practice here in Austin, Texas. I grew up in Round Rock, Texas, and moved home, got married a few months later. I mean, it was a lot of life happening at one time, which I'm sure many of us can relate to, and got off to a really great start as an associate. And I was with that practice up until about 2 years ago, let's just call it that, before branching out and doing my thing. And here we are doing this now. And it's been a lot of lessons. It's been a lot of fun. It's been sometimes staring at the ceiling and wondering what the hell did I get myself into? But like many of us probably experience those emotions regularly.
Yeah, and I'm glad you kind of brought up, the fact that we are in a unique profession where, if you go to Harvard medical school and you are top of your class, like you're going to get a top residency, then you're going to get a top job offer that it's going to be $500,000 a year. Like there's certain medical professions where a lot of that does carry a lot of weight, but like they say, the DC in our last of our name is basically what our grades are. All you need to graduate, and you can still be successful, right?
That's right. Yeah, I mean, the only thing I got out of it was a sleepless night because I did have to give a big speech, and that Like, I prepped for months. I had a feeling that that was coming. So I went to Toastmasters, did the whole thing. I kept questioning, like, am I the right guy for this? Because I'm not like for rah, rah, turn the
Yeah.
power on, chiropractic. The guy that went after me, that was like the
Yeah.
big speaker of the event. I can't remember his name, but he was talking about your blazing pisiforms. My father-in-law still brings that up, and very not like how many probably of us practice, not anything against an investment, but like was very talk the tick for those that
Oh,
understand that world. And like, that's just not me at all.
yeah. Yeah. No, it's, but yeah, it just kind of shows that, there's more to it when we do become a chiropractor and we actually graduate. There's a lot to becoming, let's call it a successful chiropractor, and there's a lot more sleepless nights. Probably the best thing you got out of that experience was the learning how to do some public speaking, right?
Yep, absolutely. So it's just like anything, it's a muscle that you have to exercise. Some of us are blessed with more muscle than others, but it's a trainable thing. And it was a good thing to go through. It's helped me, for whatever reason, get asked to do stuff like that from time to time. And it's good for building your network.
Yeah. I wanted to bring you on. I've been fortunate enough to coach you a little bit here for the last year and a half or so, and kind of that transition from associate to owner, and dive into that transition there. And I want to set the tone a little bit for the audience, to where I believe you did a good job within your associateship to grow a practice within a practice. I think one of the mistakes that a lot of young DCs make, a lot of associates, is they might go into it with a mentality of like, oh, I don't want to build his or her practice. You almost kind of go into this job wanting everything to be provided to you, and not also build your own patient base, because you have this feeling that, "Oh, I'm going to leave in a fair amount of time, and I don't want to put all that effort. It's something I can't take with me." And you didn't have that mindset. You built a really nice practice patient base within that practice. And I think, um, young chiropractors need to understand that when you do open up your own practice, if you decide to do that, right? Like, I don't think it's for everybody. Not everybody has to open up their own practice to have a successful career. But if that is what you want to do, you'd probably rather it not be the first time you've tried to build a patient base. If it happens that way, fine, but look at it as a really good test run if you are working within a practice. So, what were some of the things you took out of that experience of like building a patient base within the four walls of, say, another practice that was beneficial for you?
I come from a father who's a serial entrepreneur, so I have some level and understanding, and did the ride to work with dad stuff in the summer, and
Mhm.
location, 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 son, and all that. It's some of this wasn't completely foreign to me, but it's very different. Trading hats from associate to owner, or even if you're an associate and they feed you, versus like you're an associate that you got to go out and get still because your paycheck is dependent to some degree on it. I am a pragmatist by nature, and after 2 or 3 years in this practice, I realized that my income was very much capped if I didn't go and learn how to get my own clients, develop my network. And so I was able to negotiate myself into a purely revenue-based share split. And
Mhm.
I pitched it to him as, "Hey, man, this removes overhead from you. Like, if I don't show up, you don't lose a dollar, right? But I'm taking risk. You're not taking as much risk anymore. Now I want to, since I'm taking some of that risk, I want more ownership of the revenue share." And so we were able to agree to some terms that made sense for both sides. As I like to bring up to him, every dollar that comes to my paycheck is a dollar less in your business. So I'm not unaware of the negotiation that we're doing here and trying to provide value so he can also expand. I say that because, you know, I had to go out and learn how to look for opportunities. That's probably one of the best things that came from setting up our arrangement like that. You listen to your patients and they say, "Oh yeah, I'm working with a personal trainer," or blah, blah, blah. And it's, that's important to know, but it's important to go, "Oh, that's great. Would you like me to coordinate some care? I can talk with your personal trainer," or whoever, just like many of us might send narratives to PCPs or those types of
Mhm.
things. So I just made it a habit, and then I put it in our intake paperwork. Do you work with a personal trainer? I'm, data mining for contacts.
Mhm.
So I go out and make some phone calls. Some people are super interested in connecting and some aren't. And you just play that game. And then I learned some of that on somebody else's dime, I guess you could say. nurtured it. Schedule got busy enough, get into life, and you kind of put some of that stuff on the back burner. I was able to negotiate myself in a good enough place that I could say for most associates, I was probably in the top percentile of earning, and I had some version of our life of golden handcuffs. And then it started to become apparently clear that that practice life cycle was very much changing from where I had learned and kind of developed some of those skills. And a couple of years ago, I started packing my parachute for a variety of other reasons. And one of my personal, or I guess you'd say professional goals several years ago was to meet with 40 people that I had never talked to,
Mhm.
practice cold leads, practice developing, just getting a warm intro and an email. And that's it. That's
Yeah.
all I have to go on, basically once a week. So I could learn to navigate those because I knew that was a skill like I was going to have a lot of confidence with to go out
Mhm.
and develop my network. Plus, you never know what opportunities are out there. I was hunting for, hey, dude, I got a room over here. You can rent it from me. That
Mhm.
stuff just doesn't show up on, LoopNet or whatever. It was a skill that I find invaluable. Would gave me a lot of confidence for kind of stepping up and going out and doing this thing now.
Yeah, definitely. And then let's chat about where that transition was when you left and opened up your own. You were subletting a space. How did you find that space? Was it through a contact that you had met?
So honestly, um, it was through exactly that exercise.
Mhm.
I had a patient say to me, she didn't know any of this was going on. She goes, "Hey, you should meet my personal trainer. He actually is in your neighborhood or near you where you live." I said, "Oh, I'd love to." This was during that year of the 40 people.
Yeah.
And I walked in there and she set me up, said nice things about me. He was super easy to talk to, get along with. We're same in terms of age, relatively speaking. So there's just, you're looking for any one thing, and we do this all day long. We are
Yeah.
interviewing literally all day long, trying to find like, oh, cool, you're into barbecue, so am I. What kind of smoker do you have? Just finding something to develop a relationship.
Yeah.
So, we hit it off. He was a former NFL player for a few years. He was looking for someone that did the work that I did because it helps him in his business and its appearance. And there was just enough space that we needed to throw up a ceiling and another wall. And so we made that happen. So I knew like I had that in my back pocket. It took several months before this all
Mhm.
transpired, but I knew that that was there. And then I had another contact that I had made here in the Austin area that I have been seeing he's a personal trainer, his clients for probably 8 years at this point,
Mhm.
whatever it was. And that was again from just person mining, talking to a previous client that we both shared. She said she loved him. And then I went over
Mhm.
there. He's a stalwart Eric Cressy blog reader. That I've done all of his mentorships up there in Boston. So we hit it off right away, spoke the same language, and then he just started sending me business. So I'd called him about a month before I thought stuff was going to hit the fan. I said, "Hey, dude, like, I think I'm going to need a space. Can I put my portable table in there for a little while?" And he said, "Sure." So after, the transition happened, I was over there cleaning his space up, readying it for
Mhm.
potentially the next day's business. And I'm walking out of his facility, and a friend of mine has a clinic right across the parking lot. So I walk in there. It's like a Tuesday at 10 a.m. And we get to chit chatting, and he's like, what are you doing here? Like, because I'm usually busy seeing patients.
Yeah.
And I explained to him what was going on. And he's like, hey, man, I got a third room right over there. You can rent it from me. And that's how that happened. So
Yeah.
it goes back to relationships, who you know. A
Mhm.
great book that I read was Rejection Proof. I probably read that 10 years ago. You just you don't know what opportunities are out there until you ask, and most
Yeah.
people don't want to say no because it's uncomfortable. So even if they can't please you, there might be this adjacent door that's available that you had no idea to ask about. 'Cause I
Mhm.
went into his office thinking like maybe he's got another room. I walked in there just to say hi because I had shit else to do that day.
Yeah. Yeah.
He was like, "Oh man, look at this opportunity I have," and I'm like, "Sweet, I actually do need that opportunity." So your relationships with people is probably the biggest thing I've learned over this last several years, and your opportunities are directly tied to that.
Yeah. I have a story. I'm getting old enough now where I have stories from quite a long time ago, and they seem to come to pass here every so often. Where you're like, "Oh, I didn't realize that was going on there." But I had an opportunity back in 2009. I was inside of a gym, and I'm gonna tease out a little bit with you on moving out of the gym, but we'll get there in a second. I kind of knew the gym situation I was in at the time was on delicate terms because the business of the gym didn't seem like it was doing so good, and I had someone connect me with this woman, and she had a place called Ellen's fitness studio, right? So I go over to Ellen's fitness studio and I check out the space, and it really wasn't going to be the space was okay, but I can only use it during certain times, and it wasn't going to work out too much. And this woman was like in her 50s, right? And I just kind of poo-pooed it and didn't do it, and I move on. And so fast forward, it's like 2015, and the person that had connected me with that Ellen's fitness studio, she's like, "Did you know what Ellen ended up doing?" I'm like, "Do you know who Ellen is?" And I'm like, "No, what is she?" So Ellen, like a year later, gets connected with this person that knows how to franchise things, and they opened up Orange Theory Fitness together.
Oh, God.
The first one was in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, which is next to Davie, Florida, which is where her studio was and my practice was. And I was like, "You got to be kidding me!" Because I mean,
Well,
if I could have hitched my wagon to her,
yeah, you'd
could have
be
been
on the
huge.
corner in every big city.
Yeah, you could have chiropractic clinics in every Orange Theory Fitness, right? I'm
I
sure it
mean,
wouldn't have come to that, but yeah, I just was like, man, I can't believe I blew that opportunity.
well, that's kinda how you and I first got connected is I was being tasked potentially with a similar opportunity in another fitness studio that is a big franchise. And, that has come and gone as quick as it
Yeah,
came on. I remember when I filled out my first forms, I thought maybe at some point in the next year or two, I'd have 6 locations just because of the nature of the
yeah,
business that was asking me to potentially put offices in all those places. And we've gone from 6 down to 1. One really
yeah,
good. It doesn't sound good, but it's super successful. I'm very happy with it. But again,
yeah,
you don't know. Sometimes you think, hey, this is a golden ticket and it just dovetails a different way. Sometimes you think this isn't going to work and it is a
yeah.
golden ticket. It's keeping options alive, finding high upside, low risk, which is what that was. I negotiated that agreement to be extremely low risk on my end. And who knows, it could have been a high upside and it just didn't work out.
Yeah, it didn't, but probably for the better. And I know when you and I started working together, you had the few different locations going on, and you were growing, and obviously running yourself ragged with all that. And one of the things that I always try to recommend, because you just never know the nature of the particular gym you might be running, and I do think it's a great launching pad for many chiropractor, especially kind of, evidence-based sports chiropractor types. I think it can be really good, but you need a plan to get out. And that was something that you maintained, but you did a great job of getting busy enough to then, kind of graduate from renting from the gym. And so tell us now where you're at, what you're doing, and why you did consolidate down.
Yeah. So I realized two major things. One, I'm not in the luxury practice situation. I have
Mm.
kids, I have a mortgage. I'm in my late 30s, turning 40 here pretty soon. Got 401ks and Roth IRAs and 529s and all the things like I'm sure many do. So the idea of just staying myself with a tiny, tiny little nut to crack is not really a thing. If I were a made man and already 55 and just this is doing it for fun, saying low overhead and inside of a gym would be nice. Most most gyms, I think there is a huge, huge fad going on right now that cash base is the only way to do practice and you have to go that route clinic gym hybrid, and maybe not even that, uh, be the clinic inside of a gym rather. And
Yes.
you'll always have an influx of patients and it's the Goldilocks of practice, which couldn't be further from the truth.
Mhm.
I have a very close friend of mine that was with this previous practice that I was a part of, and he is still in one of the bougiest gyms here in town,
Mhm.
and he can command any price, you name it, he can
Yep.
command it. It's not even, it's like pocket change, cool, no big deal. But he's only so scalable. And maybe he'll do more. I don't know. I'm not casting judgment. He's one guy. right?
Yeah.
So at some point, you still end up trading time for money. And as I said from the outset, I am interested in building a business. I've already had a job. I'm not interested in building another job. I would like a business. And so most of these gyms with high earners and people that have lots of disposable income, they just don't exist. They're hard to get into. People that are in it don't want to give up for obvious reasons. So then we're left with most of these other gyms, right?
Yeah.
And they're all, 149 a month or 179, 225, whatever that is. And that's a nice spot. And most of those people have some disposable income. So it is a fertile ground. But if you think you're going to go into a gym with 140 members and you're going to run some banging practice, like you got another thing coming. So when I got into this gym, I didn't just rest on my laurels and just do a bunch of workshop to 140 members. You have to go out and still make connections, meet people, and keep your mindset very broad. Because I mean, truthfully, in my opinion, I think it takes about 300 or 400 members to service one PT or chiro inside a gym. And there's very few gyms that have that type of membership that isn't like transactional in the sense that it's more value budget focused. It's $69 a month, and then they could grow a membership to 500 people. If you're commanding $300 a month for your membership, it's unlikely you're going to grow a gym business so large that it will solely support a clinician. And then if you have any business savvy, you're going to be like, well, why am I just renting space? I should hire a clinician. Right. So like there is just this constant cognitive dissonance that's going on there. So I don't think this Goldilocks exists. I think it is exciting, but
I want to tease that out a little bit because that's a really good point. And then I'll let you get back onto that. Sorry.
sure.
It's a great point because for those that in a gym, there's definitely some, and we actually have a few clients where they've got really good gym situations. The gym's been there for a long time, very stable, very busy, good flow. But to your point, those particular doctors aren't reliant on just the gym members. And I think that is a huge mistake. And I haven't really talked about that on the podcast before. So I'm glad you brought that up, is that if you do go into a gym setting, even if it's a great gym, and if you do get some patients from the gym, awesome. I want you to think of that as kind of gravy, and you need to build a real practice. You need external people coming into your practice for it to be a legitimate practice. You can't just rely on the gym members. So I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah, I view it as two things. A floor, right? Like
Yeah.
just being present, I'm likely to land some clients, right? And
Yeah.
that helps.
Yeah.
And then it was inexpensive, relatively speaking.
For sure.
It's hard to find a room to rent. It just really is. It's doable, but it's hard. And so my goal with that was awesome. This gives me as much runway as I possibly can with the finances we already had saved.
Yeah.
And then it keeps my nut as low as possible. And it allows me to hoard money because have hardly paid myself anything compared to what I'm used to. And we're fine in getting by, but it's not sustainable, mostly because I needed a hoard of money to go pay for this new office, which, I can happily say I've paid for outright.
Yeah.
A fully funded OPEX account, sinking fund, emergency fund, all the stuff from, things that your program teaches from Profits First model and et cetera. Being in that micro clinic situation and not taking my eye off the goal, which was to build a real clinic, I was able to position myself to go after it with money and not debt.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's huge. And that was the thing that I do preach. For me, I was in gym, then I was in an orthopedic group. But if you're going to be in those situations, definitely try to leverage the low overhead, get external, get people in there into your practice, even if it's in a gym, save up money and be able to, at some point, if it makes sense, which I would say the vast majority of the time it does make sense. I do, again, know some chiropractors that have had a really good long-term situation, and that's awesome. But to get your own office space so that you can then think about the next steps there. Chiropractors, if your website traffic or Google Maps visibility has felt a little unpredictable lately, You're not imagining it. A lot is changing behind the scenes. AI is reshaping how search results show up. Competition in the map pack is getting tougher, and simply ranking well does not always translate into new patients. That's why Propel Marketing and Design is hosting a free chiropractic SEO workshop. You'll learn what's actually changing with Google Maps, how AI is impacting the way patients find and choose clinics, and what small, realistic updates you can make this year to stay visible and competitive. This is not a high level talk or a bunch of jargon. It's a practical step by step workshop built for busy clinic owners who want clear direction and next steps they can actually implement. Save your spot for free at propelyourcompany.com/MCM SCO workshop 2026. And we'll see you there. Tell us about your new space and what you're excited about on the future with that.
So the new space is great. It's about 1,300 square feet, which is a
Mhm.
huge upgrade from 150, whatever that was. No, and then places that I was at had common areas for exercise and rehab, but I paid for the 150, if you will. Um, Outside of that, I've got two offices for care or, tables, and they have their own very minimal setup for bands and light weights for exercise. The flow that I see in this office is I can bounce between two rooms. I can
Mhm.
leave needles in people and run therapies or et cetera. Eventually have patients staged once we scale to more volume where it's really necessary. Because my billables per hour are too low. They fit the model that I was in, but I don't have the volume quite yet to demand all the other pieces that go with running a more sustainable billables per hour type practice.
Yeah.
I also have a small space for exercise and gym, and then I have a very small space for a staff room. And I have just
Mhm.
recently, at the beginning of January, hired my first full time staff member who is an hourly wage, who has helped take some of the burden off me. Now we're still early on and we're
Uh,
creating our wheel for what that looks like. But as I was commenting a moment ago, today's the first Friday in God knows how long months that I have my paperwork done when I'm going to walk out of the office, which is on my KPIs. And I can finally go red to green for once. It's been
yeah.
months. I could say that. So this clinic is um, not efficient right now, but that's growing pains. I've only been in it
Yeah.
for 2.5 months. I signed a 2-year lease with first right of refusal with the goal of I can always tack on another year or two if I
Mhm.
need to, and I'm not ready to move out of this space. But it allows me to stick my elbows out because before I was stuck. I couldn't hire a
Yeah.
staff member. There was nowhere for them to go, and I did not have a second room, so I had maxed out what I had, and my schedule was, if you look at your Jane stats or whatever, it was just 100% utilized for months and months and months, and I had no lunches, staying late.
Mhm.
So now I can become a touch more efficient, which improves my billables. I've got a place for staff so they can start taking over my social media things and I can just become the character, if you will, in all
Yeah.
of our videos. So this clinic, it's going to grow to 3 to maybe 4 patients per hour over time. I have
Mhm.
space for my sports science stuff. I have space for actual real exercise. I have space that I can brand my own videos. There's space for a staff member. And then if I'm lucky, I can start bringing on other therapies, whether it's shockwave, laser, or something else, you name it.
Yeah, and you are a cash-based practice, and it's something that we've been kind of, you've built up the practice, and I think you and I have worked together to try to now carve out the future in a sense, and you've been putting all the work to do that, and part of that was, yeah, we needed to maybe get a little more efficient with the patient care on how many you can see within an hour without sacrificing quality of care. How do we've increased rates, and you did well with
Yep.
that, and that there was no blowback on that at all. And so I think a lot of the, let's call it the rehab based or sports chiros that are cash based can struggle with that hourly capacity number. And so we, kind of work through what those capacity blocks are. Money wasn't really a capacity block for you. It was more of, like you said, time and space and maybe a little bit of equipment. You've done a good job of fixing the space block, and you got new space and doing all that. and now hiring. You took on a lot. You moved, you hired, you closed down a location. I wouldn't say close it down. You consolidated, which really I think is going to be a higher leverage point for you, which has been great. And so you're consistently taking what the next block is and then attacking it, and that opens up to the next level there, which has been pretty cool to see, which has allowed you to utilize profit to then reinvest in the business. And I want to commend you on the delayed gratification, because you're not 28, you're 38 or in the late 30s, right? And so
Yeah.
it gets even harder to have delayed gratification in your late 30s than in your late 20s, right?
It's tough. I mean,
Yeah.
my wife's been literally barking at me for years to buy a truck because our family needs it. And
Yeah.
I'd be taxing in our personal life for years because I didn't know what was going to happen in my professional life. I mean, this has
Yeah.
really been 4 or 5 years, basically since the fall of 2020. I've just been in taxi mode. I have not been in attack mode. We
Yeah.
paid off
Yeah.
our student debt, which everybody knows that's a huge thing. Whenever
Mhm.
your Uncle Sam decided to turn that back on, I can't remember what it was, but it was literally the night before. It was like, okay, payments are due. And we've been just saving because, you didn't have to pay anything for those couple of years. And we wrote that last anticlimactic check
Mhm.
off and it was done. I remember like, that's it.
Yeah.
That's,
Yeah.
just go to bed now. So we just took care of that and then just took care of the next thing and then took care of the next thing. And just uh, to I view this business as a vehicle for us to
Mhm.
either buy back time or, as I've always said, I retire when I choose to go to work, not because I
Yeah.
have a certain number of money in my account. I don't know if I'll work forever and see patients forever. I don't know. And at this point,
Yeah.
it's not a thing that I need to know. I'm really focusing on how can I build this to be a real business? I don't want it to revolve around myself. I don't want people to just only refer to my business because of who I am. I want to
Yeah.
provide kick-ass jobs for people that come in here and either want to be, they are a clinician and
Mhm.
want to be a part of it, or it's some type of support staff or a personal trainer. I want people excited to show up.
Yeah.
In order to do that, that takes time, it takes energy, it takes some vision, it takes some money, it takes being really disciplined fiscally and delaying. And, you have to play tug of war
Yeah.
between what are your personal goals, what are your professional goals. And so I have a very supportive wife and spouse, and she's been wildly patient with me. She's an entrepreneur as well.
Mhm.
She's the complete opposite of me in that regard. She's a creative. So,
Yeah.
it's been fun to see how your personal finances and your business finances almost mirror each other in a lot of ways. And so
Mm.
we've been, prior to running this business, very conservative with our financials personally, which lends itself to just operating a clean,
Yeah.
optimized business.
Well, I've referenced this before in the podcast, but I think it's a good time to do it again. I listened to a podcast. I mean, it was like 6 or 7 years ago, but the gentleman was talking about in life, kind of the first half of your life is you're building the vessel. And then the second half of the life, if you build that vessel well, the second half of your life is filling that vessel. Right. And it really, um, it resonated with me because I think, a lot of us have our buddies, our friends that are corporate since they graduated undergrad and they just went into corporate careers. And for them, the vessel is like family and house, early house, get a house early, 401k only, like it's looks different for us as chiropractors. And then if you decide to own your own practice at some point, it's a whole lot. It looks a lot different than your friend that is the corporate employee. And so you may start behind, right? Like you might be 26 years old when you graduate school versus 22 like your friends. And then there's a lot of other things going on, but when you decide, whether it's get married, have kids, that's part of the vessel, buying a house, that's part of the vessel you're building, opening up your own practice and doing all that. For me, I didn't buy my first house till I was 40, but I did buy my office real estate at 33. And to me, that was part of the vessel I was trying to build professionally. And if you do it, sometimes it looks like, you're 40 years old and you're like, wow, I just now feel like I can really put some gasoline on this. And but from 40 to 60, the if you build the vessel right, from 40 to 60, your earning potential there and your asset building there can be so exponential that you just bypass all your corporate friends that are just kind of saving for 401k and hoping that they can retire at some point. And that's where that delayed gratification goes. That's where instead of buying the new car, you're moving into the new office space. And instead of buying the watch, you're buying the shockwave. Like it's certain things like that. You have to make that decision because then you're going to really be able to bear fruit that second half there.
Well, it goes back to, the Rich Dad, Poor Dad book,
Yeah.
that mentality. If let's say my monthly nut to crack is 10K for the lifestyle we want to live,
Yeah.
if I only have a few minor assets that are making a few $100 a month, a little 401k here and a little of this and a little
Yeah.
of that, like, okay, cool. Like I can't sustain
Mhm.
my lifestyle where my money works for me. This business, and the reason why I want to build a business is because I want the business to be that asset. It's just,
Yeah.
it is my 401k. It's where
Mhm.
everything's going. That's the goal. Now, we may find out 10 or 15 years from now, that didn't work out. That is the cost of
Mhm.
doing business. But the same is true for a 401k or a Roth IRA. I mean, just ask some of those people several years ago that were retiring and they're like, oh crap, the market tanked. What do I do now? Or
Yeah.
inflation's going crazy. Like, do I cash out? Do I ride the inflation bug? Should I work a few more years? So there's nothing certain in this world. I do know I have a lot more control over this asset than I do just sticking it in ETF and hoping that I pick the right handful of them and trusting that, every 7 or 8 years, it's going to, on average, go up and double or whatever. But at the end of the day, so much of this boils back to being satisfied in your person and finding some
Mhm.
purpose and why are we on this planet and what are we trying to do? And it can change and it can fluctuate. But where I know right now, I'm in my late 30s and have kids, those existential questions can wait for a little while. Right now, it's down and grind and work hard. And that's where we're at.
Yeah. And now you're at that point where you'll be able to, you're building the golden goose essentially, and then you'll be able to take profits and do what you will with it. One thing that was fascinating, we had just gotten back from our West Mastermind, and we kind of went around the room because it was the first meeting for the year, and introducing some people and some of the unique things that they have going on. And we have one member that has done well in practice and now owns like 7 waxing salon or parts of waxing salons. He's investor in that. We got another one that owns a basement. We don't have basements in Florida, so I never even know what it is, but it's like basement proofing company. We had about 6 members that have investments going on in other types of businesses, or they own their practice real estate. So every time you're writing that mortgage check to your real estate, that's for savings. And it's exciting when you get there. That's where it becomes exponential because not only do you get to pay yourself more and max out your 401ks or your business and that type of stuff, but then you take profits and you can either reinvest it into your business to pay yourself more, or you reinvest it into other things and become a little bit of an investor, which, to your point on the Rich Dad Poor Dad, I guess that's the holy grail of the development. What is it? Job is stage one. I think then owning a job is stage two, and then owning a business is stage three, and then being an investor is stage four. Is that right?
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we know right now we have our highest nut to crack, and it's only going to
Yeah.
continue to expand. Like this is ultimately the nut we're looking for, but
Yeah.
this is the investment vehicle that we are investing in. And right now,
Mhm.
it's a lot of sweat equity, and some of it is financial for sure. But the business has been able to pay for the business so far,
Yeah.
which has been
Yeah.
great. My seed money from my person was probably what, let's call it the last 6 years of practice. I mean, this is my 15th year of practice, but the
Yeah.
last 6 or 7 years where like things started to click and I started to understand
Mhm.
what game I was playing. And so there was a lot of that was seed money, if you want to call it that way, those relationships. But the seed money to start my business was a few
Yeah.
thousand bucks. I mean, I had a portable table and,
Mhm.
like no down payments on anything. They're all handshake agreements, which I don't recommend, but you got to judge your relationships too. Some of those I just wasn't sure if I pushed a hard paper copy, if they're going to be like, nah, take a hike. I'm not really interested. Like, I'm not recommending that, but you have to have some, you need a little bit of luck. I definitely had
Mm.
some of that, but some of that was already built in. And then being really, really patient and smart with your money and keeping what is my focus? Okay.
Mm.
I need to get my own space because my biggest threat to my business right now is anybody could say, hey, get out. We have another use for that room. So, okay, cool. Now we've gotten to that part. Now my biggest threat is just making sure that I can continue to expand my margins, not because I'm trying to retire early. It's so I can sustain growing this business in a way that makes the business better for the people that we serve, which I know is a point that you've talked about before, which is it's not evil to make money. We need those things to become better clinicians so you can have better tools, so you have some space in your mind where you're not stressed
Mhm.
constantly and you're not focused on the thing that's in front of you. And so that's where we're at right now, is improving how this clinic operates.
Love it. And I think you're at the tipping point here soon, which is exciting to see. Let's take a short break from today's episode to tell you about the best decision I've made in my clinic in the last 10 years. And that has been adding shockwave therapy to our clinic. The outcomes have been really impressive. Certain conditions we were struggling with in the past, we're now seeing results with the shockwave therapy for that. And second of all, the ROI has been really good. You know, when you make a big investment in something, you want to see a return. And we're seeing that return in clinical outcomes and in our investment. And that's been really nice to see. I chose Keenest Medical for 4 reasons. One is the technology is top notch. You have to have great technology. There's a lot out there that isn't quite up to snuff. The second thing is they have a really good clinical training. They have an exclusive partnership with Academy of Shockwave Excellence so that you can become clinically proficient in shockwave. You do need to get skilled at it. I think that's a big differentiator between practices that are getting great results and seeing the ROI is they have a great clinical aspect to that as well. So you want to get trained appropriately. Third is they have in-house service team for all of your technical support, which is key when you're investing in a machine like this. And then lastly, they have a very in-depth marketing and business support for you so that you can launch this into your practice effectively, that you can get that ROI on it, that you can get the clinical outcomes. And they also have really good financing options if you need that. So go to kinasmedical.com, KINAS medical.com, mention MCM podcast and receive a free shockwave in practice book with a purchase of a unit. So that's kinasmedical.com, KINAS medical.com, and mention MCM podcast. Just last question, like, speaking to the audience, if someone is either looking to maybe open up their own practice or they own their own practice, but they just really haven't necessarily hit that tipping point there, what would you recommend for them? Or what would you say? What kind of advice do you have for them?
I have two big pieces of advice. Um, and I say this to my boys all the time. I've got a 10-year-old and a 7-year-old. We have a rule the first week of school that their job is to go meet 3 new people.
Mhm.
Okay. We are trying to develop the skill of connecting with people.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you struggle with that, then you need to work on it. And
Mhm.
I am left brained, really good at taking tests. It pissed me off when our dean at Parker said straight A students tend to struggle in practice because they don't connect with people and then they go to research. And I was like, bullshit. It just, I still remember that. It bothers me
Yeah.
to this day. So if you don't know how to make relationships, I'm here to
Mhm.
tell you it's 100% a learnable skill. You just have to show up and care and be curious, which is, what is that? The art of, what's that famous book that was written?
Is it the,
Um,
the 7 habits of highly effective people
the
or
same teacher, but it's
someone?
like, yeah, it's one of those. I can't remember
Yeah.
off the top of my head, but I read it and I was like, cool. Okay. So be curious and actually care. So like that is vitally important. And if you can't do that, then stay where you're at. The other piece is get serious about knowing where your money goes because
Yeah.
your business will stress you the heck out no matter what. And finances are half the reason why marriages fail. And finances, I would have to be really certain. I'm not an expert, but it would be the biggest reason why a business fails. And a lot of it isn't because you can't make money, it's because you don't know how to manage it. And I'm really, really big stickler for where our dollars going, how are we best utilizing them, not in a miser kind of way, but because they
No.
need to have purpose. And those two things, I think, give you a good chance.
Yeah. No, I love it. Is it win friends and influence people?
That's the one. Yep.
All right, good.
Yep.
And then, yeah, I just want to, lastly commend you also. Like, you're a very capable person, but you haven't tried doing this alone, and you knew you had to kind of take on some coaching to just even sometimes be a sounding board. And so I think more people need to consider having someone in their corner to help out with it, because it's never easy, even if you are you got a good strategy and the wherewithal to do it. It's good to have someone to help you out.
Yeah. I mean, when I took my associate job, I still remember the last little bit of an interview
Yeah.
at dinner. And they're like, well, why do you want to be an associate?
Hmm.
And he said, I want exponential clinical growth. I care less about the money right now. I care more about getting good at my job and my
Hmm.
craft. And that was in line with when we had our first dialogue. I was like, look,
Yeah.
I already know I'm going to have bumps in the road. I'd prefer not to pay for them 2 and 3 times. I'd rather just pay up front a little bit and sign up for some coaching, know that I'm doing this right. And right is a broad term. There's different rights, of course.
Mm.
I have mentors in my life. Like I said, my dad's a previous entrepreneur. I've got
Yeah.
both my college roommates were entrepreneurs now. So I have resources, and it's
Yeah.
good to have different angles, but it's also
Hmm.
have someone that's been in the trenches and that understands some of the nuance, because, some of these buddies, they might run a IT company and they don't know
Yeah.
the first thing about like clinic efficiency and structure. Now they know efficiency for their business, and it's my job to play interpreter, right? But being able to talk to somebody like you and point me in certain directions, that just shortcuts me. And for me, it made the most sense to invest the money to take those shortcuts than
Yeah.
bump my head and learn from hard knocks.
Yeah, and I know it is hard for some, that are listening. Is I kind of similar. I spent about 5 years before I opened my own practice, and I was all in on the clinical, and I really wanted to do that. And I really want to make sure chiropractors understand is like, you got to get good clinically. I think there's this weird dichotomy where we get some chiropractors that go all in clinically and forever, and then never actually learn the business side of it, and they struggle. And then you get some that don't ever get good clinically and then try to put lipstick on a pig with tactics and strategies. And that's kind of house of cards. What I've found, and I've seen this now over the years, is the ones that have really come out and learned the clinical and mastered that within reason over the first stages of their career, and also are not afraid to realize, I got to also learn the business side. I think marrying those two things is where you really have sustainable long-term growth, and your patients are all the better for it, right?
Absolutely. I mean, so much of this is self-discovery. And I know, I read the book To Sell is Human. That was a big pivot point for me in
Mhm.
understanding I had to learn how I needed to sell. And you're either in a product business or you're in a service business. And
Yeah.
chiropractors are no different than copy salesmen, car salesmen, or whatever, orthopedic surgeons. We are selling that we have a solution, and then you need to trust us and we can help you. Right. And so for me, I know how I sell is I sell from a place of confidence and conviction. So I needed to improve my clinical chops, and I needed to understand that I've seen this 6, 12, 15, 25 times before. And yeah, you're having a shit day with your disc, but like it's going to pass. And I need to be able
Yeah.
to say that because you're going to get found out real quick.
Yeah.
And so that I feel like was really helpful for me. That way
Mhm.
I could do the business part because I can just do the clinical part. The business part is hard enough.
Yeah. Yeah. So, well, Stephen, this is great, man. I really appreciate your insights on this, and it's been excited to be kind of having a front row seat to the growth, and excited about this next stage for you.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me on, and look forward to it in the future.
I hope you enjoyed this week's episode. And if you want to make the shift from busy, broke, and broken to time-free and cash confident, or you just want to continue with the exponential growth, check us out at modernchiropracticmarketing.com. Look at the MCM Mastery tab, watch the short video on there, and check out what we are doing now for evidence-informed chiropractors. We are equal parts coaching and marketing done for you. Yes, you shoot some videos, we help you with campaign strategies and ideas and really become a thought leader in your community. You shoot those videos, you send them to us, we produce, edit, and brand them to you. Then we distribute them through all of your channels. We also take them and we turn it into one good blog per month. And every other month, we have Darcy Sullivan producing a robust blog with a topic that you pick from her database to help with your SEO. So we essentially become your content marketing agency to make sure your practice is always having ethical, elegant content marketing to help grow your practice. On the coaching side, we also help you with everything from marketing ideas to business, communications, finances, anything practice growth, and really try to help prevent you from being stuck on that island. And we hold you accountable. We have a great group of doctors that are just doing amazing things, and we look forward to help you out to take that next step in your practice. So again, check us out at modernchiropracticmarketing.com and learn more.